It's an honor to have on the program an old friend of mine, Tal Hartov, who in 2010 was attacked and stabbed 18 times by a terrorist. Her friend killed in front of her eyes and Tal left for dead. This week, that attacker was let out in the deal that we just signed with Hamas to get our hostages home. Tal, I don't even know what to say to you, and it seems vacuous to ask you how you are. But please give us some thoughts of what you've been through this week.
Thank you, Flo. Well, first of all, I was doubly shocked because I only found out on the internet, which was very hard for me. I mean, nobody called, and you know how much of a Zionist I am and I love my country, but sometimes we just do not get our act together. And that was really enraging and shocking. And then I, of course, had to wonder if Christine's parents knew anything, and the Americans never told her anything. So I think there was an administration real big failure here.
So nobody called you and said, the guy that almost killed you and killed your friend in front of your eyes is getting out with this deal? Nobody?
No, in fact, there was a journalist who I became friends with. She covered my story after the attack, Melanie Littman, and she sent me, you know, she was actually trying to keep me up to date. And she sent me the list of the prisoners, terrorists, and she couldn't look through it. So she didn't have time. So I'm scrolling through. There's all these Arabic names, you know, it's in Hebrew. And it's like my heart's thumping. And then I see he's on the list. So what does that make me feel like? Yeah, that was awful, because then, of course, I'm having to deal with Christine's parents, and I didn't feel that was my place to do that at all. I mean, I have enough survivor's guilt as it is without having to step into the role of being the authority here. And then on a more, like a bigger level, you know, when the hostages come out, I mean, I bet you were crying, right, Fleur? I was crying. I was so happy to see them home, really. And it's not you know, I think as Jewish people, we're very, we can contain tension, all right? It's not this, I feel happy, so I'm not going to feel raging.
Yeah, we can do both. We can hold both, yeah.
But it's like, this is a very critical time for our society, because those terrorists will murder again because they said they will. So we have to hold those two diametrically opposed situations in context, right? That we're happy the hostage is out and we're enraged the terrorists get let out. And what will happen if we're not careful, the moment there's a murder, it stands to split us. So it's very important that we walk with this tension, that there's a time to be joyful and a time to weep, and that time is now, and it will be tomorrow, and it will be for the next few years. And I tell you something, Fleur, also, look, you're a journalist, you're a TV personality. And I've asked myself, like, how the heck have we got into a situation where actually the Prime Minister gave 2 goals for the war, right? Bring the hostages back and defeat Hamas. Now, he certainly achieved 1 goal. I think that we've got the hostages. Well, actually, we're still waiting to get the dead bodies back.
Yes.
But definitely very, very close. Have we won the war? I think that depends on how the rest of the terrorists are going to behave, right? But if you remember, this is why these people are left out. If we've had such great military victories, which we have, and thank God for our amazing soldiers, but how did we get into this situation? And I blame, amongst other things, I'm not going to blame my own government. I blame 2 things, the foreign politicians, and I blame the foreign media. And if you remember on October the 7th, do you remember that amazing show of solidarity with the flags? And you know what? That same day, they were having these thugs and these savages and the depraved marching through streets. And I said on an interview then, I think it was German TV, I said, if that's not curtailed, it's going to get out of hand, right? And then what you have over the months is actually a moral corrosion. You have a moral abandonment or ambiguity policies towards Israel. I mean, you're very familiar with this, but my goodness, we had a massacre. And do you remember the siach, the dialogue in Hebrew, right? This is why you're in the media. But I remember like 2 days after the massacre, Hebrew journalists were saying, "Tov, yesh lanu chalon shel iztamnut." We have a window of opportunity. And if you really think about that, how outrageous is that? I mean, with all due respect to the Ukraine, they've never had just a window. The door is wide open. But we as Jews know there's only a window. And what were we fearful of? We were fearful that if we do anything, if we actually say that it's not just Hamas, it's also these so-called innocent civilians who are seen on all the GoPro footage, we were fearful to tell the truth, who the enemy was. And we were fearful because of the response from the Western governments and the Western media. And so I see that the Western media with their, like the BBC, the left wing, we should start saying the far left BBC and the far left Sky News and the far left CNN, who have been mouthpieces for terrorists, right? They have introduced into the public dialogue doubt by platforming anti-Semites, by buying immediately, right? I mean, it's incredible when civilians were killed, and civilians are killed in the war, and just because they're civilians, it doesn't mean to say they're not terrorists, but when civilians are killed, we should have said, that's not genocide then, that's not genocide. And we didn't have that moral distinction to even hold on to our own Bible, where it says, Lo tirtzach. It says, thou shalt not murder. It never says, thou shalt not kill. And we did ourselves a huge disfavor, all right? And then coupled with, especially the British government, because I also have UK citizenship, but this weak and morally abhorrent British government, who on the one hand, they say Israel has every right to defend itself. And on the other hand, there's going to be an arms embargo. There's free Palestine. We're going to appoint jihadists to positions of power. And I mean, I'm so glad as a Brit, I'm so glad that, like in the ceremony, where was it, in Egypt? I'm so glad that President Trump snubbed Keir Starmer. And these people who could not stand up and defend Israel morally, they're going to pay the price for what we had on our door on October the 7th.
Well, I mean, I completely agree on what you're saying, Tal, is essentially that the world is confused about who the bad guys are here. And who more than you knows so clearly when you face death who those bad guys were. So what is the solution? I mean, I've been saying on my show for a long time, we should bring back death penalty, because anybody who's murdered multiple people should not have the privilege for anything other than the death penalty. I know that people think that's extreme. I don't think it's extreme, because the minute you have the death penalty, then you don't have a situation like this week. Your attacker, your attempted murder and the murderer of your friend is out. Do you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
No, it's very true. And like we must lean on Jewish wisdom, right? That very famous saying, he who is cruel to the kind shall be kind to the cruel.
Exactly.
Now, we've been friends a long time. And you know that I have not poured out my outrage on Arabs and Muslims, right? I've befriended. On the contrary.
You've been doing bridge building work for years.
Right. So, and what's enabled me to do that? I've maintained my right to hate. I hate the people who did this to me. I hate them. And hate is a moral virtue when it comes to murder. We should hate evil. And what we do when we don't exercise the death penalty for terrorism is that we are being cruel to the kind.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen
We're being
again.
kind to the cruel.
Kind to the cruel. And
as a result, cruel to the kind.
That's absolutely right. And then,
which is what's happening to you right now.
Yes. So I'm glad you brought up the subject of the death penalty, because, I went undercover for a few years, right? I got very tired of public speaking, but then I came out with a bang in October the 7th. So I got to do my job. But I made a statement on my own social media that I would like to at least be the public face of bringing back, or part of bringing back the death penalty. And one of the silliest arguments I hear is that, oh, it doesn't, what is it called? Is it lo mautia? How do you say that?
It doesn't deter.
It doesn't deter.
Of course it deters.
No, but it's not, it doesn't matter whether it deters or not. The death penalty is justice, and only it's a befitting punishment for the crime of murder. It's not given just to deter. It's given primarily to do justice. And it's very, very important that we bring this death penalty back as soon as possible. I don't volunteer. People had told me, they said, well, look at the optics, right? Look at the optics. I'll be the executioner. I'm okay with that.
Well, half the American states have, nobody's worrying about the optics of other countries that have the death penalty. It only seems to be a double standard reserved for us. Tal, do you know what's going to happen now to your attacker? Some people are saying that they're going to let them loose in Judea Samaria. Other people are saying they're going back to Gaza. Other people are saying they're going to be, exiled from the country. Do you know anything?
Well, Fleur, let's just, how do two Jews speak? I'll answer with a question. Did anyone inform me that they were actually going to get out?
No. It really beggars belief. And
Right.
I mean, I know so many other people whose attackers, who the terrorists who killed members of their families have to go through this whole thing, this incredible pain after everything you went through. Once justice, you thought justice was done, and now we're paying the price of getting our hostages home, which Israel is prepared to pay that price. But what people don't understand is that what that price actually means.
I know. And, I was thinking that when I don't necessarily think it was the right moment, right? But, I mean, we were all so ecstatic to see our poor people. And then I was thinking it might have been appropriate, or at some time it will have to be tackled this way, but just a little hiatus in all that joy, just 30 seconds of silence in really, like to honor people in my own. Acknowledging that, okay, this does have a price and we mustn't forget that. And we do have to hold that would help us as a nation to engrave that in our hearts, right? So we can hold it in tension and it won't break us. Because we don't want people to say when they murder again, look, it's because you let the terrorists out. We have a lot of social inner work to do to keep these two happy and terrible situations in balance.
Well, I think it's because we pay the price for valuing life, whilst the enemy sanctifies death. And that's really part of why we're willing to pay such a high price.
I'll tell you, I think so. And I'll tell you something else. And it's certainly not a criticism on the Prime Minister or President Trump, who obviously they would teamwork all the way, right? But I don't think any other nation except the Jewish nation would ever be expected to release these kind of people. And I'm getting tired of saying Kaddish. I'm getting tired of people love their Jews, right? And the commemoration and the memorials.
Yeah.
It's like we need to get some self-respect and realize that nobody is going to love us, no matter what we do, right?
We have to love ourselves first. I think that's the
absolutely.
point.
And love is self-respect and standing up for what we believe. It's like Menachem Begin said, right? He says, I am not a Jew with trembling knees. I'm a proud Jew with 3,700 years of civilized history. We fought for this country. We've died for this country. And we'll stand on our principles every time, even if it means we die. And we need to get a bit of Begin back in our life.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And I'll tell you one more. Sorry for taking over, but I had this thought, right? And this thought I had today was, way back in 2010, when I was taking a walk in the forest, I walked in, I was Jewish, right? But when I struggled and stumbled back, I didn't do that as being Jewish. I walked back as a Jew. I turned from being Jewish into a Jew in the space of 30 minutes. And that is a nuance, and I know you get it, but that's a very important nuance.
Tal, you wrote an incredible book, which I read and my children read, The Rage Less Traveled. and which I recommend for everybody to read, about the odyssey of essentially your attack, how you crawled for your life to be saved, the very, very harsh, hard road that you had to recovery, not just your physical wounds, but your mental wounds. How much does this set you back, Tal?
Thank you for asking that, Fleur, really. Yeah, because like I said, we're friends and you've followed me as a friend. We've met, you've had me over many times at your house. We've done APAC together. We've had some wild adventures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know me. And I had progressed quite a lot, really. I think it's quite remarkable that I was functional, got my sense of humor back. But I think this really has set me back a lot, a lot. I mean, also dealing with Christine's parents and just the absence of information about where this terrorist is. And no, it set me back a lot. And also the other thing is, and I'm privileged to be able to do it, but to recount, and thank you for doing it for me. Really, thank you for doing it for me. It gets so exhausting for me to recount to every single journalist, every interview.
I
Although
didn't want you to have to go through that again, and I know and I know what you went through. So
no, that's very much appreciated, and also it's in a way, it's an old story. I got bored of telling it, and I realized over the years it's something that happened to me. It wasn't who I was. I mean, other things happened to me. So now having to regurgitate this, it's actually very difficult for me at the moment.
How can it not be? Tell me something, Tal. How are Christine's parents dealing with this?
Gosh, we're getting into the really, really gritty stuff, right? But I mean, I think survivor's guilt is a very sticky thing. I mean, I speak to soldiers with post-trauma and they say, oh, but I didn't do enough for my friends. And I'm thinking to myself, of course you did enough. You're not to blame. I can see it in other people. But when it comes to myself, I have that question mark, right? Well, I invited Christine. I didn't stab the terrorist hard enough. She came here, but I was the one, she was the one who was murdered and not me. All these very complex issues. So that kind of guilt puts a degree of awkwardness on my relationship with Christine's parents, although they never blame me.
That's you, not how they feel about you.
No, for sure. I just wanted to describe the complexity of it. And they've also been very, very gracious always to me. But it's, once again, I'm back in the grisly business of communicating with them about the murder of their daughter rather than, which the exchange of emails had been in the last, ever since I wrote the book, that we'd send each other photos of nature, like to say what the mundane stuff we'd been doing. And that was very healing for me. And now we've all been thrown back into this grisly situation.
I can't begin to put myself in your shoes. And, you know, in my own way, after October 7th, for months, actually, believe it or not, I also had survivor's guilt. Why wasn't I there? Why didn't they come for me? You know, and that was just being at home and watching it happen and doing what I could. And I still had survivor's guilt. So I can't even begin to imagine the emotional roller coaster that you have been through in this last week. But Tal, I want to focus on how we move forward and on from this. If something can help heal you again, what would you want to see happen in our policy going forward here in Israel, in Gaza, in Judea, Samaria, and in general with our enemies?
Well, first of all, I'm sure people tune into your show, and you know me, I'd never bash Israel. I mean, it's an irritating place. And
absolutely, I'm the same as you.
Right. But I would like a public apology from a government official. I think that's really important.
I agree.
And so anything you can do, Fleur, you're very well influential. So there's that. And I see my job in all of this is to just keep expressing this tension that we need to hold about being joyful, but we must remember that people have paid a price. And for me, rather than focus just on my pain, I need to keep reminding myself what our darling hostages and our soldiers have gone through, right? I need to extend my tense of mercy, the compassion. And I think we need to, compassion is a practice, right? We need to cultivate it. And then we don't become so focused on ourselves. So I'm a bird watcher and a pianist, but I don't have those channels to do that. But I just want to be kind to other people. And I think we can do it as a nation. And I'm telling you, I don't know politically, but I do know something that until now, right? I'll tell you how else we lost the Asbara war. We were focusing on whether, look, we developed the cherry tomato, right? Oh, look, we have all this technology and it's amazing, but my question is like, so what? You know what our export will be? The greatest export that Israel has ever had will be our post-traumatic growth. They will see us as individuals and a nation. Yes, we will dance again. We're dancing again. We will rise again. And in a victim-obsessed world where everybody thinks they're a victim, outside of Israel, by the way, I don't hear Israelis saying that, then I think we will be able to give a anecdote for this self-obsession of other people.
I completely agree, and we already see it. We already see the innovation in post-traumatic stress disorder and in the healing capacity. We're doing it. We're essentially inventing a new healing method. Just even how we receive our hostages home has become a new type of emergency medical services. It's really incredible, and it's good to finish off on a high note, Tal. My heart, my love goes out to you. And I do believe that you have the right to that apology, and that the world has to apologize to you and to all of those people who survived the worst terror attacks and who are now, you are now paying the price for the compromises that we have to do always as a state of Israel for peace and for getting our people back. So thank you for that sacrifice, Tal, and we pray for better days.
Thank you, Fleur. Take care.
Take care.